I used to think ghosts only haunted old houses. That was before the man in the yellow raincoat started showing up. It began 3 years ago after I moved into a small apartment above a hardware store on the edge of town. It wasn't fancy, but it was quiet, and for a while, peaceful, until the rain came. I remember that night like it just happened. A thunderstorm had rolled in, the kind that makes the air feel heavy and electric. I was curled up on the couch watching TV when I noticed movement outside the window. I live on the second floor, mind you, so when I saw a man standing directly across from my living room window, staring straight in, I froze. He was wearing a long, bright yellow raincoat, hood up, just standing there in the pouring rain, face shadowed. I couldn't make out any features, just the reflection of the lightning on his slick coat. I stood up, walked slowly to the window, and pulled back the curtain. But he was gone, just like that. I told myself I imagined it. Maybe it was a trick of the light. Maybe I was just tired. But the next night, he came back. This time, I was brushing my teeth when I caught movement in the mirror. The window in the hallway behind me showed him again, standing in the exact same spot, wearing the yellow raincoat, not moving. I turned around immediately, nothing. No one was there, but my bathroom mirror was fogged up like someone had just breathed on it. By the third night, I was too scared to sleep. I kept the lights on, stayed on the couch, phone in hand. Around 2 a.m. the lights flickered, then went out, pitch black. And that's when I heard the tapping. Soft at first, just a gentle tap. Tap, tap, on the living room window. I didn't want to look, but I had to. When I pulled the curtain back, he was there, right up against the glass. Only this time, I could see more of his face. Or, I should say, I could see what wasn't there. His skin looked like it had been soaked for hours. Bloated, pale, almost grayish. His mouth hung open, slightly. No eyes, just sunken black sockets. I screamed, stumbled back, dropped my phone, and he was gone. I tried to convince myself again that it wasn't real. That maybe I had been dreaming or hallucinating from stress. I even considered getting my head checked. Until my neighbor, Joyce, a woman in her 70s who's lived in this building longer than anyone, knocked on my door the next day. She looked pale. "You've seen him, haven't you?" she said, without even introducing herself. I didn't say anything at first. I didn't have to. "The man in the yellow coat," she whispered. "He used to live here, in your apartment, before the fire." I blinked. "What fire?" She hesitated. 12 years ago, there was an electrical fire upstairs. The man who lived there, Greg, he was trapped. The power had gone out from a storm, just like last night. They found his body near the window. They say he tried to signal for help, but the smoke got to him before anyone saw. She looked me dead in the eye. He was wearing a yellow raincoat, always did. Even inside, said it made him feel safe. I think I stopped breathing. I asked her why she never mentioned this before. "No one's ever stayed in that apartment longer than 6 months," she said. "They all left after he showed up." I wanted to believe she was messing with me, but something about the way she said it, the way her voice shook, told me otherwise. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I kept the lights on, sat on the floor clutching my phone like it was a weapon, and sure enough, 2 a.m. sharp, the lights flickered and went out. I looked toward the window, but he wasn't there. This time, the sound was coming from inside the apartment, from the hallway. Slow, wet footsteps. I turned, shaking, and saw a trail of muddy water leading down the hall. like someone had just walked through in soaked boots. And standing at the far end was the man in the yellow raincoat. Only this time, his hood was down, and he was smiling. His mouth was wide, too wide, and his teeth looked grey and cracked like old headstones. His eye sockets bled dark water. He didn't blink, didn't move. I ran. I don't remember grabbing my keys or phone. I just remember the hallway, the stairs, the door slamming behind me. I didn't stop running until I reached a nearby gas station. I must have looked insane. I never went back to that apartment. I had my things mailed to me. I left town a month later. But sometimes when it rains, I'll see someone standing across the street, not moving, not blinking, just watching, wearing a bright yellow raincoat, and I pray the storm doesn't knock the power out again. I never believed in haunted houses. At least, not until my wife and I bought one. It was a small 2-story home in a quiet part of Oregon, nestled at the end of a street surrounded by woods. It was old, 1950s, maybe older, but the structure was solid. Hardwood floors, a fireplace, even a little reading nook under the stairs. My wife, Erin, fell in love with it instantly. We moved in during the spring. At first, it felt like a dream. Peaceful, isolated, ours. Until we discovered the crawl space. We only found it by accident. I was cleaning out the bottom kitchen cabinet when I noticed the panel at the back wasn't real wood. It was drywall, painted to match. Out of curiosity, I gave it a knock. It was hollow. I got a hammer, chipped away at the drywall, and behind it was a small square wooden door, nailed shut, about 3 feet high, no handle. Now, here's the thing. The real crawl space to the house was outside through a vent in the foundation. This wasn't marked on the blueprint. It was completely sealed in. I pried it open. A foul, stale air hit me in the face like a slap. The kind of smell that makes your stomach clench. Mold, old insulation, maybe something worse. I pointed a flashlight inside and saw a narrow, pitch-black tunnel that extended under the kitchen and toward the back of the house. It looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. I wanted to board it back up immediately, but Erin thought it was a quirky feature of the house. "It gives the place character," she said. "We should have sealed it shut." The first time I heard the whispering, it was around 3 a.m. I'd woken up thirsty and gone to the kitchen. As I passed the crawl space door, which we'd covered with a large cabinet, I froze. There was a sound, soft, faint, whispering. I pressed my ear to the cabinet. It sounded like someone was speaking in a low, breathy voice, but I couldn't make out the words, almost like it was in another language, or maybe multiple voices speaking at once. I backed away, heart pounding, told myself it was pipes, the wind, anything but what I knew it actually was. I didn't tell Erin, not that night. But 2 nights later, she asked me something that chilled me to my core. "Hey, did you leave the crawl space door open?" I turned slowly. "What do you mean?" "I found the cabinet pushed out this morning, and the door behind it was cracked open. I hadn't touched it since the day I opened it, and she hadn't either. That night, we pushed the cabinet back, hammered the crawl space door shut again, and left a heavy bag of soil in front of it. We even sprinkled flour on the floorboards around it, Erin's idea to catch footprints. We didn't sleep much. Around 2:43 a.m. we both heard it, knocking, from inside the crawl space. 3 slow knocks, followed by that same whispering. We clutched each other in bed, waiting for it to stop. When the sun came up, we checked the kitchen. The cabinet had been pushed out again. The door, hanging open. The flower, disturbed, but not like someone had walked through it. More like something had been dragged. We finally called someone, a pest control guy, just to rule out the logical stuff. He crawled under the house, checked every inch, then finally came inside to look at the crawl space. He was in there for maybe 5 minutes. When he came out, he looked pale, sweating, shaking. "There's something wrong with that tunnel," he muttered. We asked what he meant. I don't know. I don't know. It goes deeper than it should. Like the space under the house shifts or something." And I swear, when I was in there, I heard someone breathing behind me. We never heard from him again. Wouldn't answer our calls. Office said he quit the next day. That night, we put a camera in front of the crawl space door. We didn't tell each other, but we both stayed awake, listening. Around 2:46 a.m., we heard the cabinet drag. Then the whispers, clearer this time, except they weren't in another language. They were saying our names, over and over, like a chant. "Erin, Nick, Erin, Nick." I wanted to run. I should have. The next morning, we checked the footage. The crawl space door opened on its own. No one there, but something crawled out. It wasn't human. Thin, almost skeletal limb. Skin so pale it glowed in the night vision. It had no face, just a slit where the mouth should have been. Its movements were jerky, unnatural, like it was glitching between frames. It crawled halfway into the kitchen, then stood up, tall, lanky, and turned directly toward the camera, as if it knew we were watching. Then it backed into the crawl space, and the door slowly shut behind it. We left that day. Didn't even pack. Just left. The house is still there. We tried to sell it. No one stayed longer than a few weeks. One family said their toddler kept talking to the Whisper Man. They moved out in the middle of the night. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we'd stayed. What would have come out completely, and whether it was really sealed in or just waiting for someone new to open the door again. I used to laugh at the idea of the witching hour. Midnight, 3 a.m., all those scary stories about spirits walking the earth. I figured it was just a spooky bedtime myth. Then I lived through 3 nights I'll never forget. It started when I moved into a small rental house in a quiet rural town. I'd just gone through a divorce and needed a place to clear my head. The landlord offered me a great deal. The only catch, he said, was that the house was a bit old-fashioned. I didn't care. I wanted peace. And for the first week, I had it. Until I started waking up at the same time every single night. 3:09 a.m. No sound, no nightmare. I'd just snap awake, completely alert, drenched in sweat. I'd lie there in silence, heart racing, ears straining to hear something. But the house stayed quiet. That is, until night 5. That night, I woke up as usual. 3:09 a.m., almost on the dot. But this time, I heard something. A creaking floorboard. Not from inside my room, but from the hallway just outside my bedroom door. I sat up, listening. Another creak, then another. Slow, deliberate footsteps, one after the other, approaching the door. I reached for my phone. 3:12 a.m., no signal. The footsteps stopped directly on the other side of my door. I waited, frozen, expecting a knock or the door to open, but there was only silence. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I convinced myself it had been the old wood settling, that I'd imagined the footsteps, that I was just stressed. That excuse lasted one more night, because on the second night, I woke up to the same thing. 3:09 a.m. sharp. But this time, the footsteps didn't stop at the door. They entered the room. I didn't hear the door open, but I heard the steps, soft, heavy, dragging slightly. They came all the way to the foot of my bed. I didn't move, didn't even breathe. I kept my eyes shut tight, pretending to sleep, and then I felt it. Pressure on the mattress, like someone or something had sat down on the edge of my bed. My body screamed at me to run, but I stayed perfectly still, too terrified to even twitch. After what felt like an eternity, the pressure lifted. The footsteps backed away. I didn't open my eyes until the sun started to rise. I tore out of bed, checked every window, every door, all locked. But something had changed. There were muddy footprints on the floor, leading from the hallway into my room and right up to my bed. Only one set, no return path. I left the house that day and drove 2 hours to stay with my sister. I told her I'd had a break-in, but I didn't explain the rest. I barely slept there either. But the third night, I made the mistake of returning home. I needed to grab my work laptop, my documents. I figured if I went during the day, I'd be fine. I'd be in and out before dark. But I got delayed. Traffic. A flat tire. It was nearly midnight when I pulled into the driveway. I considered turning back, but convinced myself I was being ridiculous. I'd get in, get my stuff, and leave. The house was cold. Too cold. I went straight to the bedroom, grabbed my laptop, and turned to leave when I heard it again. Creak from behind me. I spun around. The hallway was empty, but the air, it felt heavy, charged. Then the power went out. Everything went black. My flashlight was in my glove compartment. My phone battery, dead. And then from the pitch black hallway, I heard it. Breathing. Shallow, wet, right outside the door. And slowly, the breathing turned into a low growl. I backed away, bumping into the dresser. My heart felt like it was trying to claw its way out of my chest. And then the voice came. Low, male, not human. I've been watching you sleep. I bolted. I didn't stop to grab anything else. I ran down the hallway, through the living room, slammed into the front door, locked, fumbled with the bolt, yanked it open, and ran barefoot into the street. I didn't even drive. I ran until I reached a neighbor's porch and started pounding on the door like a lunatic. They let me in. I called the police. When the officers arrived, they found the house empty. No sign of forced entry, no footprints, nothing. Except one thing. On the pillow of my bed was a single muddy handprint, smudged, as if someone had been cradling the side of my head while I slept. I never went back. The landlord refused to believe me, said I was letting my imagination get the better of me. But he also let it slip that 4 previous tenants broke lease early, all of them citing sleep disturbances and paranoia. No one stays there for long. Last time I checked, that house is still empty and still for rent. If you're brave enough to rent it, just make sure you're not a light sleeper, especially around 3:09 a.m. Business travel had never bothered me. I'd been to dozens of hotels, big cities, backwater towns, even the odd roadside inn with flickering neon signs. I thought I'd seen it all. Until last October, I was driving cross-country for a project and found myself in upstate New York, somewhere between Albany and Syracuse. It was late, pouring rain, and I needed rest. My GPS showed a small hotel just off the main road. It looked dated, but I didn't care. I just wanted a warm bed. The Stonebridge Lodge, it was called. From the outside, it looked like something from the 60s. 2 floors, peeling paint, and a flickering vacancy sign. I walked into the lobby, soaking wet. The receptionist, a pale, older man with slicked-back grey hair, barely looked up from his book. "One night?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, handing him my ID and card. He barely glanced at it before handing me an old brass key. Room 237. No electronic locks, no digital records, just a real key with a heavy tag. "The room's upstairs," he said, "end of the hall." I thanked him and made my way up the creaky staircase. The hallway smelled like mildew and furniture polish. My room was the last door on the right. I unlocked it, pushed it open, and stepped inside. The room was fine. Dated carpet, wood-paneled walls, a boxy TV that probably hadn't worked in a decade, but it was dry, warm. I locked the door behind me, peeled off my soaked clothes, and collapsed onto the bed. At some point, I drifted off. I woke up around 3:30 a.m., not to a sound, but a feeling, like I was being watched. I sat up slowly, heart pounding. The room was dark, lit only by the dim orange glow of the parking lot lights leaking through the curtains. I scanned the room. No one there. Then my eyes drifted to the armchair in the corner. At first it looked empty, but then I saw it, a figure sitting completely still, shrouded in shadow. My breath caught in my throat. "Hello?" I whispered. The figure didn't move. I reached for the lamp and flicked it on. The chair was empty. I stood up, confused, my mind racing. Had I imagined it? I walked to the chair, felt it, still warm. I didn't sleep again, just sat on the bed, watching that corner until the sun came up. At checkout, the receptionist looked up with a raised brow. "How was your night?" "Uneventful," I lied. I handed him the brass key. He stared at it, then frowned. This is for room 237. I nodded. "Sir," he said slowly, "room 237 is sealed. Has been for years." I blinked. "What?" He came around the desk, picked up an ancient ledger and flipped it toward me. Each check-in was handwritten. He pointed to my name, next to room 108. "That's the room I put you in." I told him that wasn't possible. I'd used the key he gave me. Room 237. He looked pale. I don't understand," he muttered. "That room's been shut since the fire. No one's stayed there in over a decade." I felt sick. "What fire?" He hesitated. "In 2012. Electrical fire. A guest died in there. They found him slumped in the armchair. Smoke inhalation." My knees went weak. "The fire didn't destroy the whole building," he continued, "but they sealed the room. Management didn't want the rumors getting out. We had other guests claim strange things. Cold spots, shadows. One couple left in the middle of the night, screaming about someone sitting in the corner." He looked at me. "Sir, I never gave you that key." I demanded to see the room again. Against his judgment, he agreed to walk me up. When we reached the end of the hall, he stopped dead. Room 237's door was boarded up from the outside. Heavy wooden planks, nails, even caution tape. "See?" he said, voice shaking. "No one goes in there." I pulled out my phone, opened my gallery. I'd taken a photo of the room when I checked in, something I do for travel receipts. And there it was, a photo of room 237, fully intact, door open, bed made. But there was something else. In the corner, barely visible in the shadow, a man sitting in the armchair, staring straight at the camera. I left the hotel without another word, got in my car, and didn't stop driving until I hit the state line. To this day, I don't know how I got into that room. or what I really saw. But sometimes, when I look back at that photo, I swear the man in the chair has moved, just a little closer, every time.